Today I want to talk to you about the 5 things that you need from an agent in order to be successful in this market. Now, it's important to understand that the market that we just left is now in the rearview mirror. We don't any longer is it put your sign on the property and have a group of buyers lined up around the corner waiting to bid over and above your asking price. That market is in the rearview mirror, and we need to consider where the market is today in order to be successful. All right, so the first thing that you need from an agent today is an agent who is willing to price your property competitively. Now, when I talk about terms pricing your property competitively, I'm talking in terms of price, features, and benefits. Our objective is to make sure that your home is the clear choice in the marketplace. The challenge we have as sellers, they often fail to understand that when you put your property on the market, that you're entering a competitive marketplace, a competitive situation, and your home is going to be compared to every other option available to buyers in the marketplace. So you see, as agents, we have to consider consumer behavior in terms of value in an effort to understand how a potential buyer might consider your property, and then based on that information, we establish a point of leverage within the marketplace that will drive up the exposure of your property and ultimately your sell price. Make no mistake about it. The price at which you come to the market is going to account for about 90% of our ability to get you the best price and terms when we sell your home. So the second thing that you need to look for in an agent is the marketing of your property. 90 to 95% of the agents out there will take your home, they will stick in the MLS, and they're going to sit back and wait for another agent to sell your property. Well, unfortunately, placing your property in the MLS and waiting for your property to sell is no longer an effective approach to selling your property. To be quite frank, it never really was. You need to make sure that you work with an agent who has a defined marketing plan to make sure that your home gets the maximum amount of exposure on your property so that we get more eyes on your property. The more eyes that we get on your property, the greater the exposure, the more opportunity for the best possible price for your property. The more buyers that are potentially willing to compete for your price, the better your price will be. The name of the game in marketing is presenting a compelling offer to consumers, and if your offer is compelling enough, buyers will compete for your price and ultimately drive your price up to and above the asking price. Now, one point of distinction it's important for consumers to understand is the use of social media. It is not necessarily a valid marketing plan. There are certain challenges with social media that agents fail to share with consumers, and it relates to the type of exposure that social media allows. Now, most social media platforms are pay-to-play platforms. An organic reach and marketing your property 99% of the times is not going to be a successful approach to marketing your home. Social media should be part of the marketing platform, provided it is a targeted marketing paid campaign. The fact of the matter is that 99% of the agents out there will spend less than $100 in marketing your property. That is unacceptable, in my opinion. So our goal when we market your property is to make sure that you get the maximum amount of exposure when marketing your property. So much so that we make sure that we will get you more exposure than you would be able to by working with any other agent in the marketplace. All right, so number 3. The next thing that's most important when you hire an agent is having an agent who has a network that is both deep and wide. You need to make sure that the agent that you work with has the ability to reach out, offer your information on your property to people that are not only the other agents in the marketplace, but also agents nationally, because it's important to understand that it attracts a lot of buyers from all around the country. And having those connections is crucial, but it's also understand that building a network like that takes time. Also need to make sure that you have an agent that has connections with investors who are actively participating in the marketplace. And on top of that, an agent understands that active, aggressive prospecting is a crucial part to your success. Look, the reality is that most agents have a fear of cold calling, and they don't use active prospecting as part of their everyday activities. And the reality is the buyer who's ultimately going to end up buying your property is probably not someone they're working with at the moment. Sellers have to work with an agent who is willing to beat down as many doors as possible to make sure that your home gets the exposure to the buyer who is willing to pay the most money for your home. So the next thing you need from an agent is an agent who is an effective negotiator. Now, there's a lot of agents out there that claim to be great negotiators, but understand negotiation is truly an art, and understanding how to bring parties together to a compromise and finds the best possible outcome where all the parties feel that they are understood, well represented in the final agreement. Now, most real estate agents, to be quite frank with you, are poor negotiators. Quite frank, they just haven't had the experience of understanding how to negotiate effectively. They usually consider negotiation from an iron fist approach where they push as hard as possible to try to push to get the best price for a property. Rarely is that effective in negotiations. It's really better to hire an agent that understands objectivity, understands the market, and understands how to bring parties together for the best possible deal. The reality is, as a consumer, you're not going to know how an agent negotiates until they bring a deal to the table. But the absolute truth is, this is where agents separate themselves from the herd. A great agent is going to get you a deal far and above what an average agent is going to get you. And in most cases, it's going to more than cover the cost of the hiring the agent in the first place. Does the agent have a clearly defined approach to get your home across the finish line? Approximately 30 to 35% of all contracts actually never get to the closing table. Now, there's a possibility that you're going to accept an offer that's not going to get there. But it's also important to understand that the majority of the efforts as us as agents is actually from the point of contract to the time of closing. Our goal is to get you across the finish line with the least amount of bumps and bruises along the way, without having a proactive approach to handling contracts. You're not going to get there. So one extra thing that you need from an agent is, and to be honest with you, is probably the least thing that's discussed, is experience. So in today's market, it's been estimated that about 90% of all agents out there in our current marketplace have never been in a market long enough as agents to actually negotiate a contract, and have never been in a market where it's taken more than 15 days for a property to sell. The reality is they just haven't had enough exposure in the market to understand how to handle tough deals, understand how to handle tough times. And an agent who has been in the business for less than 10 years, they just do not have the exposure to difficult times and difficult negotiations, or the ability to learn how to adapt in an ever-changing market. Now, agents don't talk about experience because they don't have it, but if you hire an agent who lacks experience, it is likely going to affect your bottom line. When you sell your home, true professionals and experience understand that selling real estate is a process. And if we take the necessary steps to get your home sold, your home will be sold in a reasonable amount of time at the best possible price. It is not a fly on the wall approach where we kind of hope and pray that your property is going to sell. It's something that happens from a series of events that leads to a successful outcome. All right, so let's talk about a few things that you might want to avoid when you're hiring an agent. All right, so the first thing you want to avoid is an agent who is promising you something that is just too good to be true. The reality is that real estate is not like selling other types of investments. There is a process that involves significant due diligence that makes selling real estate and the exposure of your real estate more challenging than other investments. Now, there are people out there that are offering guarantees like your home is going to sell in a very short, unreasonable short period of time, and at the same time promising you dollars over and above. Let's be frank, that is just not reasonable. So in order to accomplish this, they attempt to restrict your exposure in an effort to create an opportunity of exclusivity. Now, the problem with this is it flies right in the face of consumer behavior, the laws of supply and demand, and it is just not an effective approach. When the market allows for buyers to consider other opportunities that's not in the agent's inventory, and the likelihood that the ultimate buyer for your property that is already working with that buyer, or a buyer who is not interested in their own representation for the purchase of their home, is highly unlikely. The fact of the matter is there's one company out there that's offering this. They account for about 30% of all expired listings in the marketplace. If I was a consumer, that is certainly something that I would not be interested in, and I would not want to hire that agent. Turnover as an agent ultimately is going to affect your sale price. And the second thing that you might want to avoid is an agent who is unwilling to give you pushback on your asking price as well as their commission. You want to make sure that you work with an agent who is willing to negotiate on your behalf, and the reality is if they're unwilling to price your property strategically so the market considers your home an opportunity or a value, at the same time, or an agent who is willing to protect their own commission, chances are they are not going to give you the same type of protection when it comes to negotiating the sale of your home. You have to keep in mind that the asking price, when you enter the market, establishes your leverageable position. Most agents fail to understand this importance of the asking price, and they won't push back because they feel that as a home seller, they have hopes that you'll end up choosing them based on the price they tell you their home is worth. Market doesn't care what you think the value of your home is worth. Market doesn't care what I think your value is worth, what your home is worth. The market is willing to accept what a willing buyer is willing to pay for your property. And by understanding consumer behavior, in many cases, we can drive the price, we can drive negotiations for a better possible outcome, provided that we enter the market at a competitive price. Now, in terms of commission, most consumers don't realize that the costs associated with an effective marketing plan on your property, not to mention that the actual commission earned is far less than what's negotiated with the home seller. The amount of money that we receive as agents is usually less than half of the total commission. Now, as a result, in order for an agent to agree to a lower commission, they have no choice but to cut corners elsewhere. And 9 out of 10 times, that's going to be related to the exposure of your home, the marketing of your home. Your marketing will ultimately suffer. And as a home seller, you want to make sure that the agent that you work with is willing to invest to make sure that your home is seen by as many people as possible over and above what the MLS offers. Cutting corners here will ultimately affect your bottom line. Now, I hope you found this information helpful. And if you're in the market to do something, I'd love to connect with you and discuss your situation and what your unique goals are and how we can help you to achieve them. As I mentioned throughout this presentation, my objective is to make sure that we get you the best possible outcome when you sell, which means more money into your pocket than you'd be able to find any other way. And then also in the shortest amount of time possible, and get you across the finish line with the least amount of bumps and bruises. I know I can help you get there, so let's connect and let's talk about your situation. Again, I'm Ed Grabowski. I appreciate your time today, and I look forward to connecting with you soon. Take care.